Hello and welcome to Meet the Maker, a series of conversations with the clever folks who are breaking new ground and creating incredible tasting adult non-alcoholic beverages. This is less about the how and more about the why. We're getting to know the makers behind our favourite brands and discovering their motivations and hopefully replicating a little bit of the storytelling that we're so familiar with the wine industry. I'm your host, Amy Armstrong, passionate non-alcoholic drinks expert, reviewer and sober socialite. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the unceded lands on which we live, work, and record these conversations. For me here in Port Fairy, that's the Gunditjmara people of the Maar Nation. I pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Today on the podcast, I am joined by my first ever male guest. You might have been starting to think that this was like a feminist podcast, but it is. It's no intentions of that. I've just had some really amazing women doing amazing things in the non-alc space. But today, I'd like to welcome Pete Brennan, who is the co-founder of Heaps Normal. Ever heard of it? Heaps Normal to me feels like the little engine that could. Since I've been in the non-alc space for about 20 months or so, this brand has grown so much, and it's continuing to do so on a weekly basis. The distribution alone is rivaling some of the big name brewery extension brands, and Heaps Normal's popping up in venues left, right, and centre. If you're going to find a non-alc beer on a menu, more often than not, it's going to be a Heaps Normal, and that's really exciting and positive and something to be celebrated. So welcome, Pete. Thank you for coming on Meet the Maker.
Thanks, Amy. It's cool to be chatting with you, and feel a lot of pressure being the first non-female on the show. So hopefully I don't let the guys down.
No, you won't. I'd like to begin by just with you giving me a little bit of an elevator pitch about Heaps Normal, your short and sharp version of the Heaps Normal history.
Yeah, sure. So Heaps Normal is a non-alcoholic beer company. We always say we make great tasting beer for people who enjoy beer but want to cut down. So that could be you're driving for the night and you're off the normal beers, or you could be sober for life, or a mix of anything in between those. So we're kind of started by four friends that all had different reasons for wanting to get off the booze, and we launched in the middle of COVID, just over 2 years ago now, which is crazy even saying that out loud. I can't believe we've been kind of dealing with this for 2 years. We're currently in close on 4,000 venues around Australia. We're exporting. We're on shelf in Singapore. We are exporting to places like Malaysia and Hong Kong and Indonesia. And it's going from strength to strength. And we're just having a great time and doing some awesome stuff and building some, what we think is a great product, and people are really getting behind what we're doing, which is really cool to see.
I think the product really does speak for itself. I mean, I've got people all the time messaging me like, have you tried Heaps Normal? I'm like, yeah, I've tried Heaps Normal. Thank you. But people get so excited when they try, I think, to start off with the XPA and just open it and discover that first, hit of flavor is just incredible. I mean, for me, you were my gateway drug to craft beer. Up until I tried Heaps Normal, I'd never really had any craft beer. When I was drinking, I drank purely, the most basic bitch beer, and was quite averse to things with flavor. But once I stopped drinking and tried Heaps Normal, I was like, whoa, this is like a whole new world, really, of flavor and taste experience. And it really, I mean, it hits the mark. It's so well balanced. But what made you decide in the first instance to start with the XPA, like rather than say an IPA or a pale ale, or where you've landed with the lager? Where did the XPA motivation come from?
Yeah, well, first of all, that's the first and only time I've ever been labeled as, and happy to be labeled as, a gateway drug. So, thank you for calling that out. I weirdly feel okay with that in this content. But yeah, we Benny Holdstock is one of our co-founders. He's our head of product and is currently our head brewer as well. So it really came down to his expertise. He's been a head brewer for over a decade now and has some incredible experience. So Andy Miller is our other co-founder and our CEO, and Geordie Smith is a co-founder as well and our brand ambassador. And the three of us kind of looked at Benny and said, where do we go with this?
Yeah.
He's kind of the expert beer maker brewer in the team, and he was just really backing an extra pale ale. It was something that we wanted it to be different. We wanted it to be a kind of different type of beer. Obviously being non-alcoholic was one thing, but launching with something that wasn't really that popular, we thought would kind of get people's attention and get some traction, and it seems to have worked. So I think we did the right thing.
And where did the name come from? Heaps Normal.
Yeah, we we went through a few names actually. The reason it's called the Quiet XBA is because we initially registered a company called Quiet Drinks, and then we kind of I'm a brand builder by trade. I run a branding studio as well, which is in a weird way how Heaps Normal was born. But we created a bunch of brand iterations and designs that were around quiet drinks, and we were pretty poised to kind of move forward with that. And then one day, Andy just kind of phoned us out of the blue and went, guys, I just had this crazy idea. Just like, let me throw this at you, and just dropped the phrase Heaps Normal. And we all kind of went, what is he talking about? Like, we don't really understand what he means. And then he just went into this kind of, this story about normalizing mindful drinking. And Andy's incredible. He comes from he's the ex-head of marketing for a craft beer company here in Sydney, and he's ex-agency, advertising agency as well. So he just really understands the strategy around building a brand and marketing a brand. And I think he was sitting on it for a while, and he was the kind of fresh eyes that came into it. I'd been sitting on the idea for about 18 months, 2 years before I spoke to Andy about it, and just kind of playing with designs really and not really knowing where to go with it. So having Andy come in and kind of go like, this is something that he looked at with, like I said, like a clear head and fresh eyes, and wasn't too too jaded and the opinion that I'd formed potentially over the time that I'd been looking at it. And it just sat really well. I think the four of us kind of got really excited about that as a brand. And then we quickly went to, went online and changed the name of the business and started altering all our kind of brand and design look and feel, and ended up where we are now. And thank goodness we went that route instead of the other one.
Yeah, well, I think it's got, especially in Australia, it's got a special little like added connotation of, that heaps good. Like we already had that kind of in our vernacular. So then to bring that in, it's got that familiar kind of feel anyway. But it's like, oh, hang on, this is something different. And I think it's good branding. It's amazing that you guys have all brought like your own strengths to the business. Like you're all bringing different qualities. Like you with your branding and design skills. It's just that's such a big part of it. Like the look and the feel of the cans and the all of the marketing is just it's all such an important part of it. The storytelling.
Yeah, I think like I said, I've been working in the branding space for a few years, and I studied design when I was straight out of school 20 something years ago. So I've kind of always worked in that space, and I think for me, brands needs to have purpose, need to have meaning, and that needs to filter through into every single kind of element and of what makes up a brand. So brand is often misunderstood as being a logo, and it's not. It kind of is that, but it's way more than that as well. So that's exactly what it is, and it's hard to quantify that sometimes. Like if you were to walk into an old school Italian restaurant, and the smell and the people greeting you at the door and seating you, and putting your serviette on your lap, and then the food, and then the mints at the end of the the meal would come, the mints that come with the bill and things like that. Like all that whole experience is a brand. And I think it was I can't remember who said it off the top of my head, but the saying is like, marketing is what you tell people about your business, and branding is how people feel about your business. And it really kind of that's really what it is. So we were, I think between Andy, Benny, and Geordie and I, the four of us really having a massive input into how the brand together. It took a long time, and we jumped through all the hoops we had to jump through, and we kind of had, umpteenth versions and iterations of what font we were going to use and the color palette and the icon. And eventually we landed in a place where it stands for something. And I think, the liquid aside, which is obviously all within Benny's realm as the one who brews the beer, the brand that we've all created, the four of us together, I think really kind of gets people's attention, and people buy into that, because we're not just jumping on a fad that's, clearly it's a bit of a growth category and trying to make a quick buck. Like, our mission is to change drinking culture. And I think, we've already started to see and hear stories out in market of people that have interacted with the brand where that's starting to happen, which is just the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of conversations that I have, I know that it's not necessarily just the sober community who are picking this up. It's people who are working in hospitality. It's people who are, at the pub and might have had a couple of heavies, and then they're like, well, that's enough, I'm done. And then they can just sit there on their Heaps Normals for the rest of the night and not feel like they're missing out. They're actually still having that great drinking experience. So it's
Exactly.
great, because it's a great big web, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think, this really came around from kind of scratching our own itch. Like, I said to you, I think, just before we started recording, like, I would consider myself a problem drinker. Like, growing up in my 20s, I was born in England. I moved to South Africa when I was 10. I moved back to the UK when I was kind of early 20s, and kind of grew up there lived there for about 12 years before moving to Australia 10 years ago. I've had this kind of roller coaster relationship with alcohol. Like, my brother and I kind of lost our parents pretty young and grew up with chips on our shoulders. And I found that, particularly when I was younger, just going out and getting drunk, I just end up either emotional and crying about something that wasn't even a thing, or I just want to fight with a bouncer who's 4 times the size of me and end up losing.
That's
So,
exactly the same
um,
as me.
pardon?
Sounds exactly the same as me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, we can laugh about it now, but, there's definitely, looking back, lots of regrets growing up, and, ruining friendships and, all that sort of stuff that, I'm definitely not proud of. But, I guess getting a little bit older now, I've got 3 children of my own, and becoming a dad, and, really understanding, probably too late in life, but getting there in the end nonetheless, that, need to be a bit more responsible. And, so, when I met my wife, I kind of stopped drinking for 2 years, shortly after we met. And that was kind of fine, and I didn't really miss it. And then 2 years later, kind of started thinking we're becoming a little bit kind of antisocial. We're kind of avoiding social situations because I didn't want to have a drink.
Mm,
So, I thought, well, let's have a glass of wine and see how that goes. And surprise, surprise, a slippery slope, and
yeah.
back to where we were. So, yeah, kind of, in all honesty, battled with that for a long time. And then, um, I guess how Heaps Normal came about, like I said, running a branding studio, we were kind of, into about year 3 or 4, and started having a little bit of imposter syndrome about creating brands, and, questioning whether we could do this on our own accord without external input from a client.
Mm,
So, had this dream of, having our own brand that's, for me, always had to be a non-alc beer. My dad was an abusive alcoholic. I lost him to suicide when I was 11, and kind of grew up in the shadow of that for a long time. And also just my personal journey with alcohol. I wanted it to be something, I wanted us to create a brand that kind of honored that in some weird way or form. So, so it was always to be a non-alcoholic beer. So yeah, we kind of got to work, and we built this brand, and then, I guess, formed the team around it to make the liquid. And now we're kind of, we're 2 years in. We're kind of 3 or 4 years in, depending if you look at it. Before we launched, was a lot of kind of pre-work before we actually went to market
yeah.
2 years ago. But yeah, people are resonating with it, and, we're just so grateful for it.
So when you actually launched, you were still drinking, and it's only been in the last, 12 months that you've actually cut out drinking altogether?
Yeah, it was. I just 12 months ago, I just got to a point where, I think I got home from a function, and my daughter kind of saw me come in, and I'd had a few drinks, and then the next morning she said, "Yo, you were acting a bit funny last night," and it kind of just stopped me in my tracks. I went, okay, like I don't want to lead this example and be like this in front of my kids. And she was, I think, 4 or 5 at the time, and it just really stuck with me. Like I have such strong memories of my dad just being drunk a lot, and I didn't want that to kind of go into another generation and just kind of be a repeat cycle of what probably happened in the history of my family and many others. So I one of the reasons was wanting to create this beer was that I really kind of avoided going out. Like I avoided social situations because I didn't want to be holding a glass of orange Fanta and be asked 100 questions,
Yeah.
or even worse, like have a beer and fingers crossed I'm going to be okay tonight and
Yeah.
hopefully it all works out. So the kind of the design brief, if you like, from a branding perspective was, we want people to be holding this can around a fire at a barbecue or on the beach with friends or at a bar, and not have anyone go like, why are you drinking? What is that? Like it needed to look like a normal beer. But at the same time, when we did the research around non-alcoholic beer, I mean, non-alcoholic beer has been around since the 60s and 70s. It's been, um, in my humble opinion, it just hasn't been done very well. And there's a number of reasons for that, from the process through to the ingredients and a number of other things. So, we wanted to make sure that there was that kind of nostalgic element to it in the brand, which I think comes through really nicely, but also, something that's quite unique and different and really gets people's attention and gets people talking. And we joke internally that, the brand kind of gets people to try it and the beer gets them to come back and become fans. And we've had
It's so
like a,
true though.
yeah, it's we're just so grateful because we've just had so many amazing stories of people out in the market that are they're trying it and becoming fans and then telling all their friends about it, which is for us is just a dream come true.
Yeah, yeah. I think whilst your brand and your marketing is solid, it's also massive word of mouth.
Yeah, totally.
Mm.
I think that plays a big part of it, and it's we've had. I mean, we have a bottle shop. I live in Seaforth and all the beaches, and we have a bottle shop down here in Manly called Winona. They've been a really good customer of ours from day one, and they're like a little independent bottle shop, like really cool, kind of gentrified, so to speak. And in the early days, we've been in there for a few months, and we went in to go and just see the guys and see how it was going. And one of the girls, they said, "Oh, this like." We had like 4 guys come in last night. It was like a Friday night, and they're pretty young. She said they were like late teens, early 20s, and they were looking in the bar fridge, trying to decide what beer to. Sorry, in the beer fridge, trying to decide what beer to buy. And she said they kind of looked for a few minutes, and then all grabbed a 4-pack of Heaps Normal, and they went to the counter. And in her mind, she went, they must have fallen for the branding. They probably don't realize it's got no alcohol in it. So
Yeah,
she felt it was kind of her duty to call that out and said, "Hey boys, just letting you know, like this is non-alcoholic beer." And all 4 of them went, "Yep, we know. We're landscape gardeners. We've got to work tomorrow. We're going to house party tonight, but we want to get up before work and go for a surf. And we just love Heaps Normal." So to hear that was like, wow, okay, this is like a thing. Like people are really into what we're doing, which is great. And then, pregnant women. I had no idea when we started this thing how much pregnant women would love what we're doing. We get messages on social media and email and stuff, kind of weekly, of people going like, "Thank you, like, I love going to the beer on the weekend with my friends, and to the pub on the weekend with my friends and having a beer." And I'm 4 months pregnant and I can't do that, but you guys allow me to be able to go and feel normal again, which is amazing. And then on the other extreme, we went to see a customer in Canberra, again, a little bottle shop owner. And, I said to him, like, what kind of people are buying this? And he said, "Oh, it's typically kind of like young, kind of a bit of a male skew," and kind of started explaining. And he said, "But the weird thing happened," he goes, "the other week, had this old guy come in, like late 80s. And he said, he walked in, he looked really downcast. And the bottle shop owner said to him, 'Are you okay?' And he said, 'No, I've just come back from the doctors.' And he said, 'I can't drink beer anymore.' And he goes, 'Oh man,' he said, 'you're probably in the wrong shop.' And the guy said, 'No, like for the last like 10 years, like I've got 4 mates. We all meet at the pub at 4 o'clock and we just have a couple of beers, and our wives have all passed away. And that's our church. Like every day they
oh,
just go and, excuse my French, they just talk shit over a beer and have a good time. And then they go home and have dinner and, feed their dogs and then go to sleep and watch a bit of TV and go to bed.' And, so he was like, didn't know what to do with himself. So the bottle shop owner sold him a 4-pack and said, look, this is Heaps Normal. It's just come out. It's a new non-alcoholic beer. And he took it away, and he came back the next day apparently and bought a case. He got all his mates to come in and buy a case. He went to the pub that they go to and got the barman to then become one of our customers, and they stock it
Oh
behind the
my
bar.
goodness.
And now there's like these kind of 4 old dudes in their 80s that go in and drink Heaps Normal every afternoon and still, tell stories and make each other laugh before they go home, but not have to worry about the doctor giving them a hard time.
Oh,
So
that's a good story. I love that.
yeah, it's really cool, and it's those kind of things for me that, and I think for all of us, when it's a weekend and you're trying to get through some work, or it's kind of midnight and you're looking through at a presentation through one eye, I think I need to go to sleep. It's those stories that kind of go, like people are really resonating with what we're doing, and it's as funny as it sounds, like it's really kind of making a difference for people, and it's just really cool to keep hearing those stories that come up kind of week in, week out.
Yeah. And it keeps you motivated to, keep on
Oh,
going.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I think in general, I think we've kind of been taught, like, you go to school, you study, you get a job, and you go work for a company, and then you clock off at 5:30, and you look forward to Friday when you can have a weekend. And I think starting your own business is really, really hard work. And I make a joke out of it that I work 8 days a week, and that's not something I'm proud of or wear as a badge of honor. I think it's just kind of in the early days of running a business, you do really kind of overextend yourself, and
Mhm.
to move the needle. But like getting out of bed in the morning, like being really excited and genuinely excited to like sit down and do what you do is just the best thing in the world, because I've got friends that hate their jobs, and I don't know how they do it, because it's yeah, we've been working for a long time.
Yeah, it's such a big part of your life. How can you keep
Mm,
going when you're not loving what you're doing?
exactly.
Yeah. So you began with the XPA, and you've just in the last few months launched the lager.
We have, yeah.
Had that been an
Launched us.
intention from the beginning to always add to add a second SKU eventually, or was that just something that's kind of come out in the wash?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question. We did consider kind of the Red Bull approach of just having kind of one flagship product that
Mm,
for some businesses works really well. If you look at typical beer companies, that's not what they do. They create a whole range of products, and this portfolio of beers that sits there and kind of is them. And we felt like we weren't fully sure like what was the right place for us to play in initially. And so the XPA has been our flagship product from day one, and for 2 years it's been the only thing that we've sold. And then we just started kind of getting really excited about launching a second beer and seeing what that would look like. And the lager is probably the best known type of beer out there in terms of it stood the test of time. Excuse me. I think people in this day and age, like our palates around craft beer have been kind of blown away with all the different types of craft beer out there. So the lager has almost been forgotten about in a way, and it felt like it was a really cool thing for us to kind of resurrect that in our kind of own unique way, and see how that would go. And it's been really well received. It's selling really well. It's available on a number of websites and bottle shops and restaurants and pubs. And I think we set the bar for ourselves really high with the Quiet XBA. But yeah, the lager's just we've called it another lager, kind of a bit of a play on words on that. But yeah, it's been really cool just to kind of have another stablemate come and join the XPA, and we're having fun with kind of marketing that now and bringing that to life, and seeing how that goes.
I love the branding on it so much. As soon as I saw it, I was like, "Oh, this is so good!" It's just like such a throwback. It's like that, just that old VB can vibe that is just it's
Yeah,
so good.
yeah. I think nostalgia plays a big part in our brand, which is resonating with people. It's really funny because when people say I love the brand, like I get all the credit for that, and it's definitely not all
Well
me.
done.
Yeah, it's like I give myself a little pat on the back, and but it's definitely not all me. Like we it sounds really funny. I consider myself an experienced kind of creative director and head of brand, but I sometimes feel and I get excited about it. Like I sometimes feel like a junior designer when everyone's standing around the computer going, make it blue, change the color to orange. And we kind of all get involved and do that together. And, the results kind of, for me, speak for themselves. I'm just very fortunate that as my role of head of brand, I managed to take all the credit for it sometimes.
It would be actually quite fun all standing around trying to decide what color you got to throw in there and, playing
Yeah, it
around with
is.
it as a team
It
effort.
is. It's one of those things, you've got to kiss a few frogs before you find your prince. So we've had a couple of times where we've kind of gone, yeah, that's it, final, let's get it to print, and then we kind of wake up in the morning, look at it with fresh eyes, and go, let's change it again, and we kind of go back to the drawing board and start again, which is very much part of the creative process with anything.
Was that sort of like, can you translate that to the process with bringing the lager to life? Like, was that like you were trying lots of different things? Well, I mean, you decided on a lager and you went in and made it, and then you all kind of had to fiddle around with it a little bit, or have feedback and then make another batch, or like, how does that look?
Yeah, look, I think with both of our beers, it's been very much a process. Benny Holdstock is our head brewer, and like I
Mm.
said, one of our co-founders. He has got probably the most educated palate in the world, out of anyone I've ever met, and he'll taste it and start saying, "Oh, we need to up this, we need to down that," and the rest of us mortals taste it and be like, "Man, what are you talking about?" Like, but his palate is so refined from doing what he does for a vocation. So we very much take his lead, but yeah, it's a really interesting process. Like, typically he will homebrew at home just to kind of get things right, which I guess is a really good starting point. But it's hard to see what that's like. I mean, the first few that we would taste would be typically non-carbonated, so no fizz, very warm because it's probably been in his bag while he's cycling over to meet us in a restaurant somewhere. Um, and tasting it with the four of us sitting around a table together and forming opinions is just part of the magic, really. And then I guess the challenge for Benny is in how do we scale that from what's typically a 50-liter kind of homebrew setup in his kitchen to a 5,000-liter setup in a brewery, because it's not as simple as just percentaging up everything that we've done so far. There's lots of tweaks and refinements, particularly being a non-alcoholic beer. So yeah, it's always a really exciting journey, and you'd be surprised at the kind of, even when we get to the homebrew going, yeah, we've nailed this. This is really good, to what it tastes like when we taste it in a sealed can at the end of the production process.
It's different again.
Is Yeah, it's very different, and it's a really cool process to go through with the guys.
What made you decide on cans over bottles?
The cans are a lot easier on the planet. There's a lot less kind of effort needed because of bottles are a lot heavier than cans.
Mm.
There's a reason that beer bottles are kind of dark brown or dark green, because the exposure to the UV kind of can change the taste and the makeup of the liquid as well. So we're going for our B Corp application. We're very much in the final stages of that at the moment, which is a real journey. So every decision we make as a business is really kind of people and planet before profits, and that's it's really not kind of sales talk. It's a big thing for us. All of our merchandise, for example, is 100% recycled. All of our t-shirts, the beanies we do, the hoodies, the beanies used to be kind of old fishing nets, and we're really going for as little waste as we can. We're working with a mushroom company at the moment, that's coming on board as a partner with us, to build our brewery. We're in the middle of, in the early stages of building a brewery at the moment too. So the mushroom company basically allows for completely circular waste management. So literally no litter leaves the building. Yeah, it's really cool. So to answer the question, cans was kind of the closest we could get to being as environmentally responsible as we could be within the realms of, I guess, the field and what we're playing. So yeah, it's also, look, I think a lot of beer companies are moving in that direction as well. It's funny, I had my father-in-law, my in-laws around for dinner yesterday, and my father-in-law said, "Oh, I just love beer in a bottle. I've always been it, but he said it's really hard to find that now because everyone's doing cans." And I think, if you ask the kind of younger demographic, no offense to my father-in-law, because he's still a spring chicken, You know, like people prefer a can over a bottle, and the kind of research that we've done. So yeah, so look, we're always trying to get better, and we're always trying to figure out how we can innovate and have less waste in what we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a constant kind of work in progress.
I love this mushroom concept.
Mm,
Awesome.
it's
Where is the
it's
brewery
really
going to
cool.
be?
In Sydney is all we can say at the moment. We've just kind of settled on. Well, we finalised the space. Building is commenced as we speak. So the kind of the framework is there already. It's a completely blank canvas, so we can, pretty much do whatever we want with it. And we're building kind of some really cool ideas with an absolutely incredible team. Mainly through a number of our investors and brand ambassadors that are involved in the business, and I think the end result is going to be probably not what people would expect from a brewery and a brew house. It's going to be a little quirky and a little bit left of field, and yeah, we're super excited to kind of bring this to life. We should be ready kind of the end of the year, early next year. So
That's exciting.
keep you posted.
It would be fun to come and visit.
Oh, you'll be on the guest list for sure.
Would love that. Now, so what have been your biggest challenges over the past 2 years since launch?
Oh man, how long have you got? Look, I think starting a business in general is a challenge. We launched in the middle of COVID, which again was a challenge. We had a company offsite about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We hired a couple of houses in Byron Bay and got people, our team flying in from, our team's dispersed at the moment from, Sydney, Melbourne, Gold Coast, Canberra. Um, even kind of a little bit further out in Victoria and a little bit more regional stuff as well. And then our CEO Andy is ex kind of Brisbane, Sydney, and Canberra. He moved to Bangkok in Thailand at the end of last year, so he's operating out of there at the moment. So we got everyone together, and it was the first time that some people had worked at the company for months and hadn't met everyone in person. So that was definitely a challenge. But I think um, the bigger picture is just launching a non-alcoholic beer in general. I mean, the amount of pubs we get laughed out of by people saying that's not a real beer, get out of here. We had one person who tasted it and said, "Oh, it's kind of cool. I like the taste of it." Then had another sip, and then our sales guy said, "Oh, it's a non-alcoholic beer," and he spat it out on the floor and said, "I don't want it. I don't want anything to do with this."
No.
So yeah, so there's definitely kind of a mindset against what we're doing, which is interesting, and it's typically more like the older school type of mindset that really feels that way. Um, I've always found, we do a lot of kind of tastings and like in store at some of our customers, and we've done a handful of kind of like conferences and exhibitions and things like that. And I always find there's kind of like three types of people that we tend to speak to. There's the people that go, "Oh my God, I love Heaps Normal. I love what you guys do. And I'm such a fan." And that's always like, no matter how many times it's happening, it's always the most exciting and flattering thing to hear and makes you feel really good about yourself. Then there's the type of people that go, "Oh, you guys are wasting your time. No one's going to drink non-alcoholic beer. It's a complete joke. And you guys are idiots." And that's totally cool. Like, I think as any kind of business or brand, you can't try and be everything to everybody. So that's just, it is what it is, and there's no way around that. And then there's kind of the third type of person that goes, "Hey, I've seen you guys around, and I've noticed the non kind of alcohol thing is really starting to pop, and I don't really get it or understand it. Like, why would you do that?" And so we kind of just explain, like instead of going out and having 8 beers and probably getting in a fight with someone and smashing your phone and then getting in trouble with your partner when you get home and probably being late or missing work the next day, you could have 4 normal beers and 4 Heaps Normal beers and everything will be okay. And the light bulb goes off and they go, "Oh my God, I never thought of it like that." And they buy a 4-pack, and then they hit us up on Instagram a week later going, "Oh my God, you guys have changed my life. And I went out last night had beers with my friends, and I didn't have a hangover in the morning, and I got to do all these cool things that are really important to me." So there's been lots of challenges like that. You know, bar owners and publicans, for example, not so much today and now, but very much kind of in a couple of years ago now, would just go, well, why would I buy non-alc beer? And they just couldn't see the opportunity. And then when you say, well, do you have people that don't drink come in here? And they go, of course. And you say, well, what do they buy? And they go, well, they just drink water. It's so annoying. Or they drink, soda, and it's like there's no margin in it for us. And they go, well, what if they bought this, which is, a little bit kind of, fairly priced for the normal beer, and there's some margin in it. And they go, oh, I never thought about that. And then they buy it, and then they try it, and then people, their customers buy it, and they become kind of long-term fans of what we're doing. So there's lots of challenges like that. Brewing remotely has been an interesting one as well. Well, not remotely, but we have a third party who's our kind of our contract brewer. Again, like, we're so lucky to work with them. They're an absolutely amazing bunch of people. But again, I guess the forecasting challenges can be tricky, because you have to essentially forecast about 16 weeks out, and then make sure you kind of meet those forecasts. And there's less kind of possibilities to experiment and get in the lab, and because those production lines are kind of at full capacity, and if they're not running at full capacity, they're losing money. So that's another one of the reasons why we're launching our own brewery, or building our own brewery, because just being able to kind of bring that R&D in house and have complete control over that is going to be exciting. But yeah, there's challenges kind of day in, day out, from finding the right people to work for us, and people that really believe in what we're doing and our values, and to convincing people that you're not strange if you're drinking non-alcoholic beer. So there's challenges kind of every day, and I guess we just take them as they come and figure out how best to overcome them.
Yeah, you got to get that little 80-year-old man out and just toddle him around and
I know, right?
Preach for you.
I know, our brand ambassador. It's amazing. Like, it's we're creating a lot of content around kind of stories and stuff like that. And I think for us, like I said earlier, like, our mission is to change drinking culture, and really kind of promote mindful drinking. And I think a lot of the reasons why people have resonated with what we're doing is because we don't preach sobriety. We don't say alcohol's the devil, don't drink. We say, we're here if you are driving tonight. We're here if you have, you don't want to drink ever again. And I think just being that kind of, that opportunity, if you don't want to have a drink for a night, and being there and not really being too pushy with it, is what's really kind of helped get us traction and get people, behind what we do. I mean, the majority of our brand ambassadors, they drink, they don't mind a beer, but they also like to have it when, they want to go for an early surf in the morning, or go for a run, or do a yoga class, or something like that, where, or be a dad, or something like that, where, it just needs you to be a little bit more mindful, and be a bit more present in doing something that you really enjoy doing.
Yeah, life. When life is important.
Yeah, I'm preaching to the choir here.
I guess out of all the non-alc categories, I think beer is the one where you've got the most challenge going up against all the, the extension brands of, say, your big name breweries, your Carltons and your, I can't even think. You know who I mean. Big extension brands, Heineken, all the rest. How are you, managing that, and how are you placing yourselves differently so that you're competing with them, or are you not competing with them?
Yeah, look, I think it's good to have competition. I think in the early days, naively, for me at least, when I saw an advert on TV for a non-alcoholic beer, I thought, oh my God, it's all over, and this is never going to work. But it's just, competition is really healthy, and I think it's good to see other brands kind of doing really well. There's companies like Sober and Nort. There's a wine company called Non, which is really cool. There's some really kind of amazing brands up there that are doing awesome things. And I think, it's important to really have that abundance mindset. There's, like I said earlier, like, you can't be everything to everybody. And I think a lot of business owners get really caught up in worrying about what else is going on around them. And those are things that you can't really control. And I think we're focusing on what we're doing. And, if a big brewery wants to launch a non-alc beer because they see it as a growth category and they want to make some money, then, we can't stop anyone doing that. And if they want to do that, that's cool. I think, the thing that sets us apart is just, our purpose and our meaning and our values, and the fact that we're all kind of doing this for, a real reason. It's not, we're not, I think timing played in really well with us in terms of, as heartbreaking as to say, even COVID kind of worked for us because, I think the first lockdown, people just went to Dan Murphy's and stocked up and got hammered. And then the second lockdown, they went, shit, we can't do that again. We've got to, yeah, exactly. So we were there and we were an option and people getting behind it. But in terms of the bigger breweries, I think, it just validates what we're doing. And, we can never compete on price and things like that. A lot of those big breweries have, real economies of scale where they have, they own the supply chain from start to finish, and we don't have that. We're still kind of a relatively small independent brewery that has to, kind of go cap in hand and negotiate on deals and prices with everyone that is involved in our process of, from making it to you drinking it. And when we don't have those big volume numbers to negotiate, it makes it a little bit more expensive. And I think we've managed to get it to a point where, we're not being greedy on price. We'll never be able to race to the bottom. So if you're looking for a cheaper option, there'll definitely be cheaper options out there. But at the same time, I think in terms of quality and value for money and just, the team that's building this, their hearts are all in a really good place. And we're all kind of really trying to change our relationships with alcohol and be there for other people that want to do that too.
That's great. So 5 years down the track, you're going to be in your brewery. We're going to be able to come and visit and taste Heaps Normal. What do you think? What else is in the future for Heaps Normal? Are you going to have, another 3 SKUs? What are the big plans?
Yeah, look, I think for us, like international expansion is something that's really, being asked of us at the moment. We get kind of multiple approaches from distributors and potential prospect customers in all over Europe, the US, massively over Asia. So we're definitely kind of exploring that at the moment. I'm really excited for us to have our brand home, particularly being kind of born in the middle of a pandemic, and now everyone working from their kitchen tables and dining rooms and home offices, and now being able to be in the same room with everyone and building something that's kind of really exciting for us. Yes, we'll continue to build the range, but not for the sake of just adding another beer. Like, I think it needs to be something that's really tastefully done with reason and meaning behind it. And there's another, we've got another SKU that we're talking about at the moment that will probably be ready towards the end of the year, if not early next year. But yeah, it's so exciting. And, I think the nice thing for us is people really, even though Heaps Normal is a quintessentially Australian brand, I think people kind of resonate with it outside of Australia. And I think there's something that people aspire to. There's a kind of aspiration thing as an Australian beer company. I didn't realize until I got into this game, like, Australian ingredients are really admired by brewers and beer aficionados in other parts of the world. So, there's definitely a demand for us to go into other territories around the world. And, Andy moving out to Bangkok is part of that strategy as well. So, hopefully we'll be available in more countries as we grow. And I absolutely see this as being an international brand available in, all across the globe, and just continue to build our brand ambassadors of people who are, normalizing mindful drinking and making it not weird to go out and not get drunk. And I think it's a generational thing, when I'm 41 years old. When I turned 18, it was the kind of rite of passage to go out and have a beer and get drunk. And if I look around me now at the kind of generation ahead of me, like, the rite of passage is to have a selfie on Instagram with a six-pack, and a six-pack in your stomach, not a six-pack of beers in your hand. So just being super healthy and outdoors and doing things that you appreciate and matter. And I think it's just really cool to see that shift. It's really cool to see people understanding not getting drunk and going out drinking, and just understanding, like, having that mindful relationship with alcohol where you can go out and have a glass of wine or 2 or 3 glasses of wine, but then know when to call it a day and not get drunk and then regret regret what you did the morning after when you wake up. So yeah, just super excited for the future and where we take this company. We've got a great team around us now. We're up to about 20 staff, and everyone kind of passes the the no dicks test that we have. Like you're not allowed to be a dick if you work at Heaps Normal, and I think we've done that very well. Like we just have really good, honest people who are genuinely fans of what we're doing, and that just makes such a difference because they kind of they don't have to be told how to talk about the brand. They just go out and talk from the heart, and people buy into that because it's genuine.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'll be definitely. So I've got a non-alcoholic craft beer tasting. I'm actually doing a whole non-alc tasting series monthly at the Vic Hotel
Awesome.
in Footscray in Melbourne, and at the end of April, I'm doing a craft beer session. So I'll definitely be having Heaps Normal
Awesome.
there as part of that. I'll have Johnny along, hopefully.
Yeah, great. Amazing. He's a legend.
He is. He's a good egg.
He is.
Well, Pete, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I've learnt. I thought I knew Heaps Normal, but I now know so much more, and it's been a real
Oh,
pleasure to have you on.
it's been a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, and thanks for kind of doing what you do as well. I think it's really cool to see people just doing stuff in this space, and I think what you're doing is awesome, and just super grateful to that you kind of supporting what we're doing, and hopefully your listeners are kind of are into it too, and just really 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 grateful to kind of be here chatting with you today. So thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. So, everyone, remember, for all your non-alcoholic drinks recommendations, head to drybutwet.com.au and join me in a fortnight's time where I'll have another amazing chat with a non-alcoholic drinks producer. See you then.